The biggest mistake I think a lot of people make, though, around this, and it's why they give up or they stop their health journey or they, whatever it is, quit the business or never start it. I think that a lot of people identify a why that they think is the right one, and it sounds really good. And if you share it with someone else, it sounds really good. Like maybe it's like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to buy a house, or I'm doing this because I want to pay for my kids' college one day, and those are great whys, right? Like they sound so great, they make so much sense, but often they're not deep enough and they're not meaningful enough to make sure you don't quit when times are tough.
How do you become more focused and disciplined? And I was joking with Jamie in advance. I said, we can't just call it Discipline Week, because if you do, people won't watch because they feel guilty or they don't like it. But if you say, become focused and disciplined, then everyone's like, oh, I'm game for that.
I know. That's the thing, is we want everything but don't want to do the work, which I'm right there. That's how I feel most days. But yeah, no, I thought I watched pieces of the Super Bowl. I thought Amanda Gorman's beautiful poem was wonderful. And I missed the halftime show. I saw a bunch of recaps of it. I missed that. And yeah, what's interesting is we talk about focus and discipline, and it is Tom Brady, whoever anyone is rooting for, his focus and discipline on not just football, but all of the areas of his life, right? Fascinating and also inspiring. And I think there's a commonality between so many people that achieve great things, or, feel joy in their relationship, or make it through the day as a parent doing homeschooling for the first time. I think there's daily habits, and there's that learning of focus and discipline, and it's a lot, but I think it really changes your life. And I think the thing I've been seeing all over online this morning is a lot of people not just talking about the Super Bowl and talking about whatever, but actually talking about Tom Brady's habits and Tom Brady's focus, and what does he do in his day-to-day life with his sleep, with his diet, all of those things, because I think people are fascinated by how do you perform at the highest level for so long, and continue that. And it's not just the football, it's not just the thing you're doing, it's kind of like everything, right?
Yeah. And here's the good news. You actually need to be disciplined in so fewer things than you think you do.
Thank you for that. Can you elaborate? Because that's good news this morning.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is good. Brendan Burchard's got some good news for you today. You have to be way less disciplined than you think you do. You only need to be disciplined at just a few moving, consistent pieces in your life. And when you get that, when you do those things, those habits or those things you want to be disciplined about, what I always call needle movers, the things that move the needle forward, that like peg out the board or make you go faster or more efficient or effective. When you get disciplined about the things that really matter, it's great, because all the guilt for all the things that you don't show up for, or you're not awesome at, kind of goes away, because the momentum and the progress and the fulfillment and the joy of the things that are the big things move you forward. And so I always tell people, like, here's what for all those who are like, oh my God, discipline, please don't talk about it. There's good news. There's 3 things to discipline. 1, scheduling. That's the core of discipline is you have to schedule something and choose to do it and choose to prioritize it. Discipline comes from prioritization. If you don't have the prioritization, discipline won't stick. So, okay, all we got to do, let's schedule something. Put it on the calendar. That's step 1. Step 2, show up. No matter what, just show up. You don't have to show up in a good attitude. You don't have to show up perfect. You don't have to show up with your hair did. You just have to show up. People are like, how are you and Jamie so disciplined to do a morning show? Well, we schedule it at 7:30 a.m. We try to start at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, and we just show up. Some days we know what we're going to do. Most we have no clue.
Do you know how many people in the personal growth space, people that are multiple New York Times bestsellers, big shows, all that stuff, they're like, how are you going? Wait, you and Brendan, you're going live like Monday through Friday? every day? I'm like, every day. We're starting week 5 this week. They're like, you're going live, like that's like a keynote or a fireside chat or live I'm like, every single day. Yeah. And we're doing it. So cheers to that. Cheers to everyone part of this with us this morning. We're all growing together. We're all getting inspired together. I love this so much. One thing I wanted, sorry to interrupt your thought, but one thing I want to just point out to everyone, just a moment of appreciation for Brendan and for how you deliver these, not just from your research, but from your, whole career of doing this. There are awesome people in the personal growth space who I love, and I love watching on stage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's not the research behind it. There's not all the framework, the how-to, all the actual things, some of which aren't sexy. Like, I don't want to think about focus and discipline, right? But listen, at the end of the day, so many people maybe I get an amen on this. There's a lot of people out there that are also entertaining in the personal growth space, but then you leave and you're like, okay, how is this going to, like, what am I going to implement in my own life to actually bring more joy and bring more better relationships and more focus and help my dreams come to fruition? And the thing I have so much appreciation for your work, Brendan, is that, you're so different in that you're also really fun to watch on stage. No one dances better than you on stage. Like,
yes,
all the
thank
things,
you very much.
All the
I work
things.
very hard on my dance moves, people.
You're so funny. All the things, like some of my favorite speakers, but you're able to bring these core things, the stuff that isn't. No, seriously, people will agree with me, because I bet you a lot of people joining us, right? Yes. See, I see April says yes. Jonathan. See, a lot of people, we've all been to a lot of stuff, and it's fun and it's entertainment and it's inspiring. But then also, what are the things we can actually do in our real life that really make a difference? And I feel like you bring both, and I think that's so rare. So I'm just sitting here as your friend, just appreciating it, because I'm like, oh wait, Brendan, tell me the 3 things. I actually, you see what I'm saying as well, because I think we're all in this together, and you have such a vast background with High Performance Institute, with all the research, everything. Sorry. Okay. 3 things that we need to do. We don't need to be disciplined in everything. We don't need to be disciplined in everything. But you're saying these 3 things really move the needle.
I'll give you 3 principles.
Yeah.
For greater discipline. And then I'll tell you the actual 3 things to do to generate more discipline in such a way that your personal growth grows, that you feel like alive and connected and meaningful and joyous on this journey, because that's what really matters. I mean, discipline sucks unless in some ways the outcome is progress, greater engagement and aliveness of life, and greater success in whatever way you measure that. So the 3 principles of all of discipline comes down to, number 1, mastering your schedule. I know that sounds so boring, but it is so absolutely fundamental to your focus, to your progress, to your health, to everything. It doesn't matter if you say, okay, I only want to schedule 1 thing today. That's fine with me. I'm not trying to own every hour of your life, but that 1 thing better be awesome, and it better be a needle mover. So scheduling, show up when it's scheduled. And then the 3rd thing, which is most important, is a principle for all of discipline. No discipline happens unless on a real consistent basis unless you have social connection. All of the research shows the most productive people, the most focused people, the people who are most fulfilled in doing meaningful work have attached a meaning that their focus, intention, their hard work is attached to social connection, meaning I'm going to show up for this because it's going to make me a better mom or parent. I'm going to get healthy so I have more energy for the kids. I am going to do this project so my team and company grows, so we serve more people and we make an impact. It's like the hard work must be attached to impact, but the impact isn't just self, like, oh, I'll get this. It has to have a social connection. Like you have to have a reason to show up over and over and over for others. It's why we always teach in high performance. You have to have a little card that says, who needs me on my A game today? Yeah. Like, I am disciplined because I wouldn't be less disciplined doing a morning show. I'm more disciplined doing a morning show because Jamie's there. She's waiting on the other end. If I don't get there, I feel like a chump. So that's important, Okay, so before I tell you 3 things I think you should be disciplined at, what are 3 things you think people should get disciplined at in their life to enjoy life better, or to have more success, or happiness in that?
Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful. And I always talk about, the idea of doing something bigger than yourself, right? Attaching a meaning to it that's bigger than yourself a lot, right? And I think hearing how you put it is having that social element to it, or that social component. And I think one thing just to call out on that is sometimes people don't know, well, how do I, they haven't attached that that point of identifying how is what they're doing impacting on a social level. And so just to give an example of that, just to kind of break it down, I think that it can be a result of a result. And what I mean by that, this morning, because I have book press all day today. So I'm not missing my morning walk, right? I walk for an hour every single morning. And so today I did it at 4 a.m. Ooh. I did not want to get up at 4 a.m. I didn't want to be outside freezing at 4 a.m. What I know, and that could be the thing I'm disciplined about. So if you just take that, we're like, okay, well, what does your walk have to do with something that's social connection or bigger than yourself, right?
It's preparing you to do a good job for others later on.
Exactly. So you're well, here's the thing. I literally don't want to do it at 4 a.m., right? But what I remember is exactly what you're saying. And it's the attachment to it. And what I mean by that is, on the days I have missed my morning walk, I notice a big difference later in the day. I notice that I'm not as sharp. I notice that when my friends call me, my advice isn't as on point, or I'm not as great of a listener because I'm not able to be as present. I notice that I am less joyful, I feel the day less if I don't do that 1 hour I don't want to do of that morning walk, right? And so the way I'm able to show up and serve or impact or give or be a parent to my 2 little ones or any of that stuff is impacted if I don't have that discipline or that focus of just doing a morning walk for an hour. So I see it in real time, the impact. And so I choose, okay, for me, a walk seems so simple. And with COVID, sometimes I literally walk in circles. Like we were in lockdown in California and weren't allowed to even walk on the streets, right? So I did it in my little small driveway, or some days it's around the kitchen. Yes. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, for me, that seems like a little thing, but for me and what I've noticed is that's actually a big thing, right? And so one question, Brendan, is, because I think this way of thinking, right? I see everyone typing, schedule it, show up, social connection. We can process what that is, but then processing, well, wait a minute, what does that mean in my real life? So everyone who's part of with us now live on Facebook and live on Instagram, thinking through what are those big things that are needle movers? Because we get them in theory or in concept, but sometimes a needle mover can be as simple as the one I just shared, which is like my morning walk, even though I did it at 4 a.m. today, because I know for me, that's a big needle mover with everything else. And with what Brendan's talking about of social connection, because for me, that's how I transcend getting out of myself and not feeling the day and being tired and actually serving and connecting and inspiring. And by the way, I just realized the 3 things you said are part of that morning walk, right? Schedule it, show up, even when you don't want to. And then, that social
realize
connection.
Doing it for yourself is helping you care for others. That's
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's so good. Morning walk. That's a simple needle mover. It's that old saying. Ethan, my partner at Growth, he always says that little hinges swing big doors. Little things you have to do to swing a big door. And so here's some ideas. First, before I tell you all, do this for yourself right now. Type in the chat down below or comment down below. What are the things if you're disciplined about, your life improves? Like what areas do you feel like, oh, when I'm on my A game here, or when I do this consistently, when I show up for this, life is better. So maybe you guys can share some of your routines or some of your habits in the comments, because we actually do read these. And it'd be super cool to know, like, what is it for you? What do you what are you great at being disciplined at, and it moves the needle for you? Or also, maybe you can share, what do you suck at being disciplined? What do you wish, what's something you feel like, gosh, if I was more disciplined about that, my life would really improve? Because I think we can all learn from where we're great and where we also struggle. because, struggling, for me, for discipline, I definitely struggle in most areas of my life with discipline, which would surprise people. They're like, what, really? Like for me, I'm incredibly undisciplined at email. Like I wish I was more disciplined about email, getting in there, doing it on a consistent basis, making sure everyone's got their reply. I just suck at email. The good news is I'm good at all the other things that moves the business forward, that matter to me and actually make the business grow. So you don't have to be perfect at everything. You have to pick your spots, know your strengths and the outcomes you want, move them towards it. But I'm seeing a ton of people. Exercise is a big one coming up. Doing your planners, doing your morning routines. I'm seeing that. Diet, exercise, all that. We call them meds in Growth Day. If you haven't heard that from High Performance Academy 2007, like you got to take your meds: meditation, exercise, diet, sleep, and then RX. Good relationships and supplementation. Like when those are on point, bam, everything's good. You become this annoying in life. Okay.
No, it's so good. And I know one of your friends, Ariana Huffington, doing so much even to talk about the importance of sleep, right?
Yes.
I think we're in this society, especially for people living in the US and then some other countries as well, where it's like we're trained to think sleep is for, someone who's lazy. And it's like, oh no, if you're going to, have your best life, your top performance, your most all the things that it's like sleep is so critical. And Ariana Huffington doing amazing things.
You get sleep right, the rest of things line up. So that's a fundamental discipline, like having your, we call it 3-2-1 sleep. 3 hours before bed, no food. 2 hours before bed, stop working. 1 hour before bed, stop the screens. And you know what? Everyone goes, yeah, that doesn't work for me. Or I'm like, no, what it means is you haven't actually tried it for 10 days. Because if you try that for 10 days, you will never, ever go back. Because you will feel so good. You'll be more focused. You'll be more productive. And people, I don't have time for that. I'm like, no, you're losing time because you feel like crap. People don't realize if you feel like crap, you're losing time. You're not as efficient, effective, as creative, as engaged. Like you lose when you feel not good. And I know that's hard because we have plenty of people here who are struggling with health issues, from mental health issue all the way to like physical bad, like they got a bad medical report and they're like, ugh. So I don't say this to pretend it's perfect and easy for everybody. I say it to like, we have to know those areas that will move the needle for us and do our best. Yeah. Let me share the high performance side of this real fast, because I said there's 3 principles, right? Schedule it, show up, attach social connection. But now here's the things I would do. If you said, Brendan, if you could only be disciplined about 3 things, what would you do? And it's not what you all think. It's totally not what you all think. And this is very much that makes me happy and progress in life. So they're not sexy. The number one thing, if I could give anyone a discipline to always do, on the first of every single month, you do a whole life review. When that calendar hits 1, as in the first of the month, you look at every major area of your life, you score yourself, you ask how you'd like to improve that, and what could you do this month? Because most people never improve their life because they never face their life.
Yeah.
You have to look at it. So every first of the month, that's for those who are new to us. Growth Day actually began because I said, let's do our personal development on the first of the month. So I go live for 2 hours in Growth Day. So if you're not a member, go to growthday.com, because I do a full personal development seminar on the first of every single month. Because I feel like if we start the month off, we nail that, we start it with good attitude, energy, but also you're looking into the month and asking, is the way I've scheduled this month going to help me move towards the lifestyle I want or the accomplishment of the major 3 projects I'm working on in my life?
And also, if we don't do this, I feel like it is so easy. And how many people can relate to this, where if you don't do this, all of a sudden you blink and you're like, oh, it's halfway through the month, or, oh, 3 months have gone by. I don't even know how did this even happen, right? Yeah. How many times have we done that? We're like, wait a minute, it's Thanksgiving. Like, wait a minute, it's spring break. And it's like your life just flies by in a blur.
One of my last 2 questions, just about your faith and how your faith has driven you through all of this. I know you didn't do it alone. You've definitely had a force guiding you your whole life. It's no doubt.
Yeah.
How important was your faith in God on this journey? And doing all of this and also just living your life the way you have lived.
Yeah, I love that you say too, I share it all in the book, because it's like 95% stuff I've never shared, including my journey of faith. And for anybody, you know, listening or watching right now, if you've ever struggled with God doubt, right? Like for decades of my life, John, I would pray and then I would feel like, maybe I'm a fraud because I don't know that I fully believe God exists. And I struggled with it. And, you know, I mean, this was decades. And then when I went to graduate school in New York, and I was around a lot of people that had different faiths, no faith, believed only in science, and they believed only in things you could truly like see, prove, touch, which of course faith is not required. And the more I was around all of it, it really started me second guessing everything about faith. And I share in this book for the first time what I did and what happened from there, and how I handled that, right? And there was a moment actually where, and I was raised in families that didn't go to therapy or didn't, like, you just either don't talk about it or you figure it out, right? There's a season I went through where, whole nother story in the book, finding out I was adopted by surprise in my 20s. And there were so many things that happened personally, struggling with fertility, so many things. So anyhow, I was in this season of just, you know, feeling so down for the first time ever. And between not knowing where I came from with my parent, not knowing if God exists, I started seeing a therapist for the first time. And she said one thing to me during one of the sessions that changed my entire faith journey. And I don't even know what she believes in, no clue, by the way. I've never heard her talk about God in any of our sessions. So I said to her one day that I was doubting God exists and that all these things. And she says to me, well, why don't you tell him? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, if God created the entire universe, what makes you think he can't handle your doubt? Tell him you doubt him and ask him to prove you wrong. Ask him to prove you wrong beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I'm like, okay. And so that started a multi-year thing where, like, I mean, let me just keep it really real because I love you, John. I'll just keep it like real. I'm just going to pretend your whole community is my friend, just like you are. And I'm just going to say it. I would literally pray and be like, you know, I would pray for, you know, this person's health and this and all those things. And at the end, I'd be like, and I'm doubting you exist. So if you could please prove me wrong, I would be very grateful. Like, prove me wrong, be in a shadow of a doubt. Like, can you show up somehow where I just know? Like, in Jesus' name, amen. Like those would be my prayers. And this went on for years. And stuff started happening that literally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, was God. In some cases, it was like told to me it was God. Like, and the more years that went on, the more I just grew to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, God's in control, God's time, all of these things, right? I won't share the whole story because so much of it is in the book, but the QVC host that came up to me that day, and finally got a shot on QVC. So she retired after we launched, right? The one who discovered me at the expo. Many years later, she was, you know, she had left QVC years before. We grew to be the biggest brand and number one brand. And so I was like, I have to thank her for loving our product that day. So I looked her up, I called her and I said to her, you know, oh my gosh, thank you so much for loving our product. You changed my life. Like, can you believe we're the biggest brand in QVC's history? And she says to me, oh honey, I do love your product, but that is not why I went up to you that day. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I was walking that expo with thousands and thousands of women. She goes, I clearly heard God tell me to go up to you and help that girl. And she goes, and I just listened. And I'm like, whoa, right? There's so many stories like that have happened. And so and I share so much more in the book, but anyone who's going through that, who believes but doubts, right? For me, telling God I doubt him, asking him to prove me wrong, has changed my entire journey of faith. And the last thing I'll say is, like, I talk about my toolbox and all of that. And just for anyone listening or watching right now who struggles with doubt a lot, right? I talk about so many tips in the book, but if you struggle with feeling like you're not qualified, or you doubt yourself, or you get distracted by what other people are doing that looks so good online and they look so successful and this and that, or someone else has launched your product, whatever it is, like, at the end of the day, if you keep checking in with yourself and feeling in your gut, this is your purpose, you're on the right track, this is your mission. One thing in my toolbox, a famous saying that I used to always pull from that really helped me every time I would just try to channel it. And every time I felt not qualified. And the famous saying, just in case someone needs to hear this right now, somebody in your community needs to hear this right now. The famous saying is, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right? And I would tell myself that over and over and over, because to me, it means if you're on the right track, you feel it, then I think it's part of your purpose and it's part of your calling, part of your mission. And if he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. To me, that means you already have everything you need inside of you right now, right? To accomplish your dreams. It just comes down to believing it for yourself.
Yeah, no one can keep you from what God has planned for you.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, when you were telling me the story about the woman saying that God told her to come talk to you, wow, I got goosebumps like you would not believe. Like that was, I just had a spiritual experience as you were sharing that, goosebumps, which always happens when God is showing up saying there's something more here. This is bigger. And wow, that was powerful when you said that. Major goosebumps on that moment.
Let's talk about the gut then, because there's multiple things that you just said there that all you've led back to the gut. And in hindsight, everyone listening and watching are going, well done for trusting your gut. But there are many times that, at least for me, I've trusted my gut and I was wrong. And I've learned my lesson and then I move on. So I want to start with you're a news anchor, you've got the blotches, nothing was working for you, you're going to try your own. What made you trust your gut in that sense? Because like you said, you had college debt, so you have all this stuff that's stacked against you. It's based on beauty, which for women is very emotional. So how did you keep going and like try to find the solution instead of just hide away? Like, what are the things that you told yourself that pushed you to keep going and trust your gut that this was the right path for you?
I've always had this feeling deep down inside, like I'm meant to do great things that help other people.
Interesting.
I've always kind of just known it. Even when I took the low-paying job to learn journalism instead of like a super high-paying, consultant or banking job, I just feel like if we get one life, I want to, like, the day I die, which God willing, it's a long time in the future, like I want to literally know there's nothing left in me that could have been used to help someone else.
And you felt that even back when you were the news anchor? Wow. So because I actually didn't feel like that.
No?
I do now.
You do now,
I feel like
so
now, like
it, right? That
my
feeling.
purpose of all the failures that I've had, all the problems, all the health issues, my purpose now is to speak it so that it can help other people.
And
but
it
back,
does.
But back when I
And thank you.
started, it didn't. It was actually, if I can be so honest, it was out of pure ego. So when people told me you can't do it, you're not good enough to do it, you're dumb, you're stupid, what are you doing, you're not talented, I was just stubborn enough to say, I can do it. I'm going to prove them wrong. And it was out of stubbornness, not out of like, I want to share it with the world, that actually pushed me to then show myself what I was capable of.
So you were driven by ego because you're like, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Exactly. Then I realized, wow, I'm actually did do it and I'm kind of capable. And so then it's like, well, if you're capable, what else can you do? And so that became the foundation of then, okay, maybe I have a superpower. So if I have a superpower now, how am I going to help others? So it kind of became a transition for me versus then just an initial, like, from the beginning. So that's why it's really impressive that you felt that even before you had any validation that you can do it or that you have the ability to do it.
Yeah, I've always had that feeling. And it's funny that you say this. I've definitely done things for ego. I have definitely done things for ego. And most of the time when I do that, I regret it. It doesn't feel right, right? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I do stuff on ego and it turns out great and whatever, but it's like it doesn't compare to that feeling of knowing you're doing something bigger than yourself. I feel like when you spend the time to really think about your why and why you're doing it, why or how it's bigger than yourself, that will sustain you through so many hard times, right? Because just hearing some of what you're sharing, I'm having flashbacks even to so many of the
the hard times, even once we finally got yeses and finally we're on QVC and all of that, when you're putting in 100-hour weeks and when stuff doesn't go your way and all that, and when your why is bigger than yourself, it sometimes it's like that's the only thing that gets you through those hard times and keeps you going. Because sometimes if it's just for ourselves or our own ego, it's not a strong enough why. When you are so burnt out and you feel defeated and you feel like self-doubt's entering your mind, it's like money isn't a strong enough why, because you can go get another job and get money. You know what I mean? It's like really peeling back the layers on what you're doing and really getting to that true why that means so much to you. And for some people, it's, I'm going to change this generation of my family. Where I come from is not where I'm going. I'm not going to have my children go through what I went through, right? And that why is huge. It doesn't have to be a why to go change the outside world. It might be a why to change inside your own home. And sometimes just like not giving up and just keeping going is the difference too in making it. You know what I mean?
Oh, so how do you do that then when you're in a moment? So you've got your why, very strong why. You're going to impact women and how they feel about themselves. It's not just like you want to make them super glamorous. It's like you're going to change how they feel about themselves, and that can lead to so many incredible things: being a better mother, being a better wife, being a better employee, a better business owner, whatever it is. I think that can really lead to something. So you've got your strong why. Now you've got your strong why, but you only have $1,000 left.
Yes, I know.
How is the why strong enough to get you through it? Or was there something else that you had to do to tell yourself, like, no, keep going? Because that's where people go like, all right, look, at some point, if something is failing, at some point you have to let it go.
So two things. So for me, and this is so personal to everyone and to what they believe in. For me, faith is huge in my life, and I feel like I hear my faith through my gut feelings. You know, I really do. And there were nights where I was just like, is this what we're supposed to do? That combined with really freaking hard work and like, let's just keep it really real, because sometimes, and I don't know how we're going here to Denny's and all the really real stuff, but what I love about it is, you know, if any of your community has heard any of my story before, they've probably just heard the $1 billion fairy tale. And the real of it is, when we were under $1,000, we were trying to get SBA loans from anyone that would give one. No one would give one, and they shouldn't have, because it's like, you know, you're trying to show a business plan for projected sales when you don't even have any. You know, we were doing 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, but you know what? It's a choice. I chose, instead of having a job that paid me a salary, I chose to be an entrepreneur. And it's like, okay, but you got to hustle, and you got to, you know, sometimes that's what you have to just do.
Because you didn't take like a day off, right? You guys, you and your husband worked like 100-hour work week, 7 days a week for 10 years.
For 10 years.
And I think it, like you said, it's important to stress that. You freaking busted your ass.
Yeah, we did. And it was like when we got down to $1,000, we went and spent part of it on IKEA desks to put in the living room, because we had an in-person office tour with California Bank and Trust, which was the last bank that was going to consider giving us an SBA loan. And but that, you know, we got the last person said yes on the SBA loan, which kept us alive a little bit longer. We were still only doing the 2 to 3 orders a day from our website, and right around that time we got a first yes finally for QVC, but we had one shot and only 10 minutes. And
you'd been going after QVC for a long time,
going
right?
after him for a long time and always hearing no. I remember, oh my gosh, like the number of no's from everybody. And so there is a guy named Alan Burke who was like the head of beauty at QVC, and he got all of those like really high-end department store beauty brands to really want to go on QVC and all the designer brands. And so he was the head of all of it. And I remember one day I finally got, I think it was a call from his assistant saying he wants to have a call with you. He's reviewed your product. And I like thought this was going to be our big break. And he was very quick, and he said, I reviewed your product with our buyers, and you're not the right fit for QVC. I'm sorry, and I wish you the best of luck. And I just remember
crying myself to sleep that night. And just, have you ever like had something happen where, that goes wrong or doesn't go your way, and then like the next day you wake up and you like hoped it was a dream?
Yes.
And then you're like, it wasn't.
You have to relive it almost, yes.
Yes.
So for you, in those moments, you're hearing no over and over again. Most people would have stopped at number 1.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have stopped at number 2. Majority would have stopped at number 3. You kept going. This was like years and years and years of you like hounding Sephora and QVC. And so what is it? Is it just your innate ability to get back up? Or did you have to coach yourself in your mind to say, no, you believe in this, remember your why? Like, what does it actually look like?
Both. I feel like when I look back on things, and this is what I love, it's like even if you're in a space right now in your life where you're like, this isn't where I want to be, I would just trust it, because I look back at like when I was a news anchor, I would get emails that were so mean, like, are you pregnant? Are you, right? I had a news director at one of my jobs that would just tear me to shreds, appearance-wise, stuff like that. And I really feel like it helped me get really strong, so that rejection started to hurt a little less, but it still hurts. But resiliency is like the most important skill, I think. I think what's tricky is going, okay, am I putting good money after bad, right? Which is like a famous saying, meaning, does every sign tell me this is a bad idea? And do I keep wasting my time and money? You know what I mean? That's the hardest thing to know, especially when you're building your business. And for me, the deciding factor for me was praying about it and realizing that I needed to keep my faith bigger than my fear, because I just felt in my gut what I was doing mattered and it was needed. I think fear kills more dreams than like almost anything else. Self-doubt and fear, I think, kills more dreams than almost anything. I was reading that famous Jay-Z quote where he says, the genius thing we did was we never gave up. And it's like, it's so true sometimes. And what's crazy is I would have saved myself so many nights of crying myself to sleep had I known what I know now, which is just that if you're doing something novel or that's different, that hasn't been done before, of course, all these people that are experts aren't going to get it right away, because it's never been done before. So there's no proof out there that tells them, oh yeah, this is a good idea, or oh yeah, this is going to succeed in your stores, or, it's never been done before. So I shouldn't have been surprised that all these people that I thought were like, they would know if, they're going to see our product and like love it right away. And the other thing I learned was by persistence and by not letting those no's destroy every ounce of confidence I had, and every single person that told us no has now told us yes. But some of them told us no for years and many, many, many times. And here's the crazy thing, and I don't know the answer to this, but what I do know, Lisa, is had I listened to a lot of the ways they told me to change our product or change our positioning, had I listened to that, I don't think our brand would have worked. I don't think I'd be sitting here having sold it to L'Oreal, because L'Oreal has a lot of other great brands that do what's already been done really well. They're the best at it in the world. Had I not done something totally different that went against what all these other experts were saying to do, I wouldn't have created something of value that complemented their portfolio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's Peter Diamandis. I think he said this. The day before a breakthrough is just another dumb idea, and it's like it's so true. Because you're getting no's a million times. You're also telling people, people are being mean. Like in my intro, I said someone said to you, who's ever going to buy makeup from you? Yeah. So again,
that was one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with in my own head. Because what had happened was, so we had no money, as you know, as we've covered, and this investor who he had invested in a lot of consumer product companies. So he had a big, he was the head of a big private equity firm and a lot of companies I love. were his products that he had invested in and then sold.
Okay.
And we finally got a meeting with him, and he was super interested.
So it's someone you're super excited about.
Yes.
Someone you're amped about. Someone
have a
you
lot
admire,
of respect for.
Respect.
Yes.
Okay, that makes it even worse.
I know. And they loved our idea of what we were doing with our products, with our company. I'm like, this is amazing, because if they invest in us, then we're not gonna go bankrupt tomorrow. And B, maybe they can help us get into these retail stores. And like, I was so excited. And then I'll never forget this. In person, this guy was like a foot and a half from me. And they said, we've decided to pass on the investment. It's a no. And I said, well, can you share with me a little bit why? Because, feedback's always a gift, even when we don't want to hear it. And he said, well, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes. And he goes, I'm not sure if women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight, is what he said to me. And I remember looking at him and just like, while I tried to handle it with grace and just say, thank you for your feedback, I knew so strongly in my gut in that moment. So it was this combination of being hurt, really obviously hurt, but I just had this strong gut feeling that said, he's wrong. Like, he's wrong. And sometimes you just need to like bust out Google and just inspire yourself. So I remember after he said that, just for myself, I would look up so many of the people I admire most, who I think are just making huge changes in the world. And I would ask myself, if they changed their body, would they do better? No. Like, if they got all skinnier, got all whatever it is, like, people that change the world, what they look like, I think is irrelevant. I think it's how they feel, it's their heart, it's their intentions. And I would just, fill myself up with stuff like that, just to get myself back to that place of confidence again. And when we finally, so here's the thing, we got to a beauty show, this big beauty show in New York City. There are 6,000 women there. And they walk the show. And what happens in the show, this is how we got on QVC, by the way. If you're a brand that's had a new product launch that year, you can pay money to go there. You get a 3-foot table and you demonstrate your product. And so we had signed up to do it. And the hope by doing this is that the 6,000 women walking and testing out all the new products, that one of them will, work for a department store and get you in there, or one of them will, or they'll vote on your product and you'll get one of the awards. And so we were there doing that, and QVC had a huge booth there. And you're supposed to stay, you're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table, but I kept like trying to sneak away to see like if there were the buyers at the QVC booth, and I'd rush back to my table. And what I didn't realize is one of the women that I'd been showing the product to was a QVC show host, and I didn't recognize her at the time, and I don't know if I was just spacing out or what. And so I was showing her the product and like telling her how much, why it exists and why it's different and special. And she said, my name is Miss Lisa Mason. I'm a QVC show host. And I just looked at her and she goes, I want you to know, I think your concealer is really special, and I think our women at home, our QVC gals, they would love this product. And I want you to know, I just went and told the buyer, I think we should have your product on. And I looked at her, and tears just started streaming down my face, and I think I freaked her out. She's like, oh, sugar, I don't have any, she's like, oh, what did I just do?
Yeah,
she's like, I don't have any power to get I just want to let you know I did this, I believe in you. And I was like, thank you. And I was like, can I send you product?
Aww.
She's like, no, sugar, but I just want to let you know. So long story short, we got a meeting at QVC, and we got a yes. But what that meant was we have 10 minutes, one airing of 10 minutes, and you either hit their sales goal or you don't come back, right? And what I know now that I didn't know at the time is you might have 10 minutes, but if you're live on the air and you're not hitting numbers, all of a sudden your clock will go from 10 to 6. And then you're like, and you can't panic, and you have to have fun, and you can't try to sell, because the second you try to sell, nothing sells.
Nothing sells.
Nothing sells. So, and it'll be at 6 minutes, and like if it's really not doing well, it cuts to 2. And what's so hard is you're live on national television, and in the back of your head, I just lost a product, or I just lost, it's so much pressure. Thankfully, I didn't know that part in the first airing, but what I did know was we had 10 minutes and we had to hit a sales target or never come back. And we needed to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer in that 10-minute window. And I just felt like, okay, if women can see this live on television, how it works, like, and they can see how it will, you know, change their lives, I can show it live on TV. And I just felt like this is it. And then here's where this appearance stuff resurfaced, right? And for any woman out there or man who struggles with like, do what I look matter? Does my weight matter? Does my size matter? Do my clothes matter? It sucks when sometimes things all around us tell us they do, right? And this is a moment where I had to make a decision where everything was on the line for my business. And what had happened, Lisa, was we had met with there's all these outside consultants, and they help a lot of people do well on television. And you know, they'll give you advice like, here's how you know, do your demonstrations, and here's the type of models to use, and here's, you know, what to say and not to say. And when I met with all the consultants, they all told me I needed to do this formula to work on air, which was cast only perfect skin models, all like the same age and skin tone and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but I want to show my bright red rosacea and show how this works for me. And I want to show real women that are different ages and have different skin problems. And I want women all across the country that have never seen a model who looks like them and skin that looks like theirs. I want to show them live why I made this product. And every single consultant said that will not work. And if I want to have any chance of succeeding in my business, that I will do what they're saying, which is to do the formula, the only formula that had ever worked in beauty. And it was the most stressful probably moment of my whole career and decision of my whole career, because everything was on the line.
Yeah, break it down, and then how you decided to just ignore them and do your own thing, because like you said, everything's on the line. What did that process look like for you, where you said, they're experts, but I'm still not going to listen?
So I was freaking out. I flew out to QVC a week early.
I love the honesty, by the way. That's
oh my gosh. It was, and it's so funny. I took, because we had no money, so I took this, it was like 3 or 4 connections, because it was the cheapest way to get to Philly. I got there, I was in a rental car, and I drove to the QVC parking lot every single day for a week, and I sat there, literally trying to envision what was going to happen in that 10 minutes, almost like the way I imagine Olympic athletes envision success. And I just knew in that moment, like I knew what I needed to do. I knew that if I went on QVC and did what everyone else had done, maybe my business would have succeeded at that time. But it wouldn't have been authentic to who I am. I'm not a makeup artist. I don't do makeup artist looks on people. It's not why I created the brand. It's not my why. So I would have been putting money and fear above the why I did this. And I just remember sitting in the parking lot and knowing, even if I try and I go out there and I show my bare face, which is the last thing I want to do on national television, showing my bright red rosacea, but it wasn't about me. It was about, I wanted to shift culture and beauty. I wanted there to be models that look like real women. I imagine real women all across the country who have forgotten that they're beautiful and have forgotten that they matter. And I realized in that moment, if I don't sell and we miss the sales goal, at least for that 10 minutes, there will be women that turn their television on and they see models, aspirational models, who I'm standing on television calling beautiful, that look like them. And I'm showing women with skin problems and issues, and I want them to know we're all in this together, like we've all got this. But it was so scary, and I remember the camera goes live, the clock's at 10 minutes, and I remember it started counting down. And and I had this demonstration planned on my wrist, right, where I put these 2 beautiful department store concealers that are top sellers and ours, and I would bend my wrist and show they start breaking up and cracking, right, and ours doesn't, which is why it would cover my rosacea. So I had this thing planned, and I started doing it, but I was so stressed out. TV, I'm not nervous for. It was the business, the weight of everything, and my hand was like this. And I was like,
just like shaking like crazy.
And I was trying to show, and finally Lisa's like, thank you, sugar. And she shoves my hand under the podium that we're presenting from. And I remember at the 10-minute mark, literally the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up. And I just looked at Lisa and I just started crying. Because I was like, it was like real women had spoken. I'm so glad I listened to my gut. And I think sticking with the authenticity of our brand, even when everyone was saying it wasn't going to resonate, is why it's the only reason that we now built $1 billion company.
Something you just said, actually, so you've spent so much time and energy and effort putting every ounce of your being into it.
Yes.
You and your husband, being super authentic, making sure that you don't divert from your authenticity, being true to who you are, and then you sell the company.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most important what would you say the most important trait would be for success?
I think,
besides believing in yourself, because I think we've spoken about that so much.
I think I can give you 3 things, but
give me 3.
I really think that, and it's not just believing in yourself, making the decision to believe success is possible for you. I think that so many of us just think we're not qualified, or we don't have what it takes, or we don't come from the right family, or we don't come from the right background, or we don't have the right education, or we don't have the right experience, all those things. And I think we talk ourselves out of it. And I think making that decision to believe it's possible is huge, like huge. Some of the things that just come also top of mind is, I talked a little bit earlier about when I was building at cosmetics and how it wasn't just about, finding a product that worked, or I think that so many people can be great at setting goals, and so many people have done enough reading or listened to enough podcasts where they understand the concept of like identifying your why behind what you're doing, right? Which is like your mission for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest mistake I think a lot of people make though around this, and it's why they give up or they stop their health journey, or they, whatever it is, quit the business or never start it. I think that a lot of people identify a why that they think is the right one, and it sounds really good. And if you share it with someone else, it sounds really good. Like maybe it's like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to buy a house, or I'm doing this because I want to pay for my kids' college one day, and those are great whys, right? Like they sound so great. They make so much sense, but often they're not deep enough and they're not meaningful enough to make sure you don't quit when times are tough. And of all the things, I did so many things wrong. One of the things I did right was like you have a why, but you have to peel back the layers and go really, really deep, right? So I shared, like, for me, like wanting to shift culture and beauty and help end that process of every little girl about to start doubting themselves, every grown woman who still does, and shift culture on that. That was really deep for me because my whole life I'd felt that not enoughness every time I'd see those beauty images. That was way more deep for me, that mission to do that for other people, than it was to go, oh, I want to buy a house, or, oh, I want to create a great product, or whatever it is. And I think a lot of people, they've got to go deeper. Like I think they start, whatever it is, and they have a great why, but like they've got to put, I recommend, because a lot of people don't do this, is putting in that work of going deeper and deeper and deeper.
So what the real true purpose is, versus just like a surface level.
Yeah. And some people think they know it. Like maybe it's like, oh, I want to, I want to pay for my kids' school. But if that's all it is right there, for some people, that's not enough. And an example, I'm making this up, but if someone says, oh, you know what? I want to peel back the layers deeper. Maybe the real why there isn't to pay for my kids' college. Maybe the why is to break a multi-generational cycle of complacency or poverty or whatever in your family. And
right. That's a big why.
Yeah.
But,
and that could be the same person, right? But they thought their why was to pay for college. And it's easy to then go, oh, you know what I'm saying? But when it's that deep.
But a lot of times people don't even know that why yet.
Exactly.
They have to go down the path first a little bit further to really kind of unravel what was pushing them. Like a lot of times, like what for me anyway, and I know it's a lot of people I know, you go down a path for one reason and your reasons change as you kind of go through it, right? And you morph and grow, and then you really find the real why.
Yeah.
But,
and I think
right?
Totally. And I think that's true. I think when you get to a spot though, where you're like, I just want to quit. And if your gut is telling you to keep doing it, that's when I think it's the time where you also have to then go deeper and be like, I want to quit, but my gut's telling me not to, but like, why is it I want to give up? And then just like, in those moments, figure out what is that deep, deep, deep why that fuels you.
Right. I agree. And you always knew, well, you had two things going for you. I think the first thing is, we didn't even touch upon this at the beginning of the podcast, but you created your cosmetic company because you had a need for it. You had rosacea that you couldn't find any product to actually help you. So you were kind of filling an ailment that you actually had.
Right.
And a lot of times I feel like when people do that, when they're feeling, when they themselves are needing of something, and then the best products usually bloom from that.
Right.
And having the why. Did you have that why at a young, because reading your book, you had a work ethic. I know you were like, in your yearbook, you said you were like the queen of procrastination, or you were like dubbed that.
Yeah.
But over time, your work ethic became extremely clear, like what a strong work ethic you had. Do you feel like that was a huge part of why you're successful as well? Is because that like 100-hour weeks and kind of grinding like you did, like you just weren't going to take no for an answer, no matter what.
I think not taking rejection personally was huge. Which I can share about in a minute. I don't think someone needs to work 100-hour weeks to succeed. I don't think they need to work a third of the amount of hours I worked to have the kind of success I did. I think when I look back, it's one of the things I actually wish I did differently. The number of hours I worked. Yeah. Because I don't, I pray every day. It hasn't taken a toll on my health and all those things I don't know. But what I realize is that, when I after 3 years of solid no's, not paying myself, when we finally, many years after that, started actually, things were doing really well and our accounts were thriving and we were getting into all these stores, I couldn't process at the time, or maybe a better word is I didn't know how to believe at the time that the success was real. And I worried at every single second it could all come crashing down. And it's another form of imposter syndrome, right?
I was going to say.
Yeah. And so I drove myself so hard because I thought, oh my gosh, like I need to strike while the iron's hot, like all of that. Right. And it never let up. And it was a decade before I realized, oh, I actually didn't yet believe I was worthy of this success. So I couldn't believe that it was happening. And it wasn't until I learned to believe it was real, to believe like it's possible for me, it is happening, I have earned it, all those things, that I was able to better prioritize stuff, that I was able to make bigger decisions. Like, we tried to have a baby. I tried to get pregnant for 10 years and, had miscarriages and so many things. And when we finally welcomed our daughter, she's 2.5 years old now, Wonder, into the world, I was raised with parents that worked so hard all the time and they were often not around. And I just made this decision like, oh, wow, I'm repeating that cycle and I'm not going to do that for my daughter, and it's going to be okay. And my success is going to continue. And it was really just making those big, shifts around that I was better able to do it. But I don't think anyone needs to ever work 100-hour weeks. I did it from a place of, I couldn't believe this success was happening. And I was just driving it so hard because I had a fear it could all come crashing down. And, you know, when I was a waitress at Denny's, I could have never imagined at the time, you know, I always knew like I was supposed to serve in a bigger way and impact and things like that. But I could have never imagined I would have 1,000 employees and, you know, sell my company for over $1 billion cash. Like those kind of things I couldn't imagine. And when they happen to us, it's how we react to it. It's a whole other thing. Right. And so that's why I did that part. So
I like that you say that. I think that's really true and real because the imbalance, right? When you work that much, you're giving the amount of stress, like you were saying, you were trying to have a baby and like you were so overworked, your body was like shutting down probably in some way, or because of your hormones or probably your cortisol levels, you know, I mean, so unhealthy. And yet it was, I think a lot of people can relate to what you're saying. It's that most people do that because they don't feel like it's real. Like that imposter syndrome is such a real thing. And that's what motivates people to do that. Right.
And I think like, you know, I think that not feeling qualified, not like, you know, all of those things. Right. And I think it's so important we're talking about it too, because I think a lot of people who feel imposter syndrome, you know, which is like, oh, I'm not qualified to be doing what I'm doing, or I don't deserve to have clients trust me, or I don't, you know, all the things we think, right? Depending on our own life situation. But like, I feel like it's human. And I feel like it's important to talk about it too, because a lot of people feel it and they think they're alone in it. You know what I mean? And it's like, no,
absolutely.
we all go through it. And for me, you know, I started assembling like a toolkit of things that I would go to, like imaginary toolkit, like quotes, sayings, stories that I would go to when I start feeling that. And, you know, for me, and I think this is universal regardless of people's faith or whatever, but every time I'd start doubting myself or feeling like not qualified or any of those things to be doing what I was doing, yet I felt like it was my calling to be doing it and my mission and my purpose. I felt like a calling, but so many times I would doubt I was qualified. And there's these famous words I would always go to that would help me. So I'm going to share them in case someone out there needs to hear this right now.
Go for it.
And the famous saying goes like this: God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called. And I would read those words over and over. And to me, they mean, regardless of your faith, to me they mean if you have this thing you can't shake in your gut, like you're supposed to start the group of moms that gets together and just shares the real stuff over wine, whatever it is, you feel this thing you're supposed to do, start the book, start all those things. Like, I believe it's start the business, leave the job you're in, all those things. I think that if you can't shake it, I think it's part of your purpose. I think it's part of your calling. And to me, if something's part of your calling, then it's like, if God doesn't call it qualified, He qualifies the called. To me, that means you have everything you need inside of you already, right? To actually accomplish the calling you were born to walk into. And so when I do doubt myself, which I still do to this day, those are words that I always reference that help me. And so many other lessons I share in the book on things that help, and just, because I
love that quote though. It's beautiful. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
I talk about a lot and believe it, actually, how I had to overcome some of the things. Like, I remember when I was working as a Denny's waitress, right? And like to really adopt this mindset of where I come from does not determine where I'm going, or where I'm even at right now in this moment in time doesn't limit the ability to have like God-sized dreams and to have expansive vision. And one of my closest friends who's speaking live at the event on Monday, Leah Key, always says, you know, she grew up in a homeless shelter and she saw people all around her that did not dream, that let fear rule their life. And I'm talking about her immediate family. And, you know, her mother said something to her as a little girl that stuck with her. She said, your predicament doesn't determine your destiny. And she'd always say to Leah, you have a light inside of you, right? And Leah held on to that even during all the years growing up in the projects in Philadelphia when she was able to get out of a homeless shelter. And, you know, she was like, where I come from doesn't determine where I'm going. And slowly over the years, she started making friends that had, you know, expansive vision like she does. And, you know, you fast forward now and she's created her own company, launched it on QVC. So she went from homeless to 100 million homes with her jewelry line. And, you know, it's all about mindset, right? For her, it wasn't, oh, do you come from the right family? Do you have any connections? Do you have any money? No, it was for her. It was what made all the difference was adopting this mindset of believing in the possibility of her own dreams and her own self, even if she couldn't figure out how it was going to happen or how to get there one day. And I love that we're focusing on mindset this week on Growth Day Morning Show, because I think that it's like the thing. It's like the most important thing, more important than where you're at right now, where's the traction happening or not happening in your business right now, what's going on with all the setbacks and the hard times and this hard season we've come out of. The mindset, getting that right, life-changing.
That's truth. That's truth. I think that is just a huge miss for most people, is that simple. You know, what's true is, what I love about this Growth Day community is all of you, when I say mindset, you automatically know the insane value of that. Like, people who love personal development know, like, oh, that's foundational. But when most people come into personal growth, they've had years of bad mindset. They've had years of a bad attitude, or they've suffered, you know, doubt, depression, discouragement for so long that it's like, oh, wow, this is the right mindset, and the ability to generate that right mindset on a consistent basis is a revolution for your life. It's not like an incremental change. It's like it's night and day. It's light and dark. It's joy or suffering. It is such a huge topic that I just believe most people, you know, take advantage of or take for granted. But I know that our Growth Day community knows that. So if you would, in the comments down below, would you guys share with us, what is one of your favorite mindsets? Since we're Mindset Week, that's our theme for the week. What's a mindset that you think people should have? Maybe that's just a thought that you think they should have, or an attitude you think they should have, or just a way of thinking that, like a pattern that you think would be beneficial to them. I'm seeing optimism. I'm seeing gratitude. I'm seeing focus. I'm seeing joy. I'm seeing a lot of mindset for positivity, for growth. That's great. I like that one. I think it's really good. Thank you for sharing that, guys. I think that's key.
You know, and also one thing I want to share, just that's coming to mind right now, with the topic of mindset, Brendan, is something that you brought up earlier, right? Which is this idea, and I love these words. Like, I write all about this and believe it. I talk about how this big realization I came through, that we're not here on this earth to compete with anyone else, right? We're just here to compete with who we know we're born capable of. And I want to share a real life story that happened to me recently in real time, actually. And I found it fascinating, right, as it pertains to mindset, because I think so many people are tuning in. They're part of our morning show right now. And maybe it's good to just do a self-check on, are you comparing yourself to anyone else? And are you thinking someone else is your competition and getting distracted by it, versus thinking, oh, I'm on my own journey. Who am I capable of becoming? And what if you actually just celebrate that other person's achievements? And here's a quick story that just happened to me that I was kind of like, because, you know, when it comes to women in particular, this is super antiquated way of thinking, but there's still amongst a lot of women this idea of like, oh, because they're so used to just seeing one woman at the table in a boardroom or what. And so there's a kind of a limited way of thinking that we're overcoming, that if another woman wins, it means it takes away from your chances of winning, right? And there's just this competitiveness that just isn't true, right? It's just not true. And Abby Wambach says, you know, her victory is your victory. And it's so true. I want to share something that just happened that might it shocked me. So let me just share it, okay? Because I think everyone out there right now, it might help inspire you with your own mindset. But, you know, I have some of the most inspiring people on the day speaking live, right? Including Brendan Richard speaking live.
What?
Brendan Richard speaking live. It's a whole day on building confidence. So I asked Mel Robbins to speak live, and she said yes. And I'm so excited about it. And I got some feedback, right? And I just want to share this. I got some feedback from someone saying, so Mel Robbins is the most sought after female speaker in the world right now. You know that, right? I'm like, yeah, I know that, of course. And they're like, you know that, like, this is your event. So are you sure you want her? Like, she might overshadow.
Oh,
no
really?
Yeah. Like, are you
so
sure?
lame.
But this is huge. This is what I want to share. Like, I'm so excited about this because I'm like, oh wow, it's seeing this play out before my eyes. Like, are you sure? Like, it's your big event, Jamie. On the whole day, you have Brendan Burchard and Tony Robbins, all these people speaking live for free. Like, Mel Robbins is the most sought after female speaker in the world. Are you sure you want her on your stage? And I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, first of all, here's how I feel authentically through and through every ounce of my being. If another woman is at the top of her game, my job, what brings me the most joy is saying, how can I lift her up higher? How can I invite her to my stage where maybe, over 100,000 people are going to see her for the first time? Like, how can I celebrate the number one female speaker in the world, Mel Robbins, and raise her higher? Like, that's where I get my joy, number one. Number two, all these people that are going to share, and what a blessing they're going to share their time with us on the day and show up, right? And it's free, by the way. It's a free event at becomingunstoppable.com. But when you show up for this event, my job is to serve. Like, my job is to go, how can everyone is going to spend their precious time with me on this day. I want them to get the most out of it. What a blessing to them to hear Mel Robbins speak live on the day. Like, you usually have to pay so much money to go to a keynote speech and fly somewhere to hear her speak. Same with you, Brendan. So I'm like thinking, wow, this antiquated mindset of people thinking that someone else is a threat to our own, like our own success. It's so antiquated and it's so not true. And in my own journey of building It Cosmetics from this tiny company to now it's the largest luxury makeup company in the US now, which is wild, right? It passed all the department store brands. I used to save my dentist.
I remember you texting us when that happened. It was like
crazy,
woo!
Right?
Yeah.
But like, if I on that journey of building this huge company had got distracted thinking these other brands were my competition, I would never have been able to build something different or special. I would have limited myself to thinking, oh, this is my competition. It's like, oh, no. Our potential is our competition. The potential we have inside of us is our only competition.
It's seeing that people still think that way. And soon as you go from, because that's just a limited pie idea, that's just if they get it, I can't. It's a zero-sum thinking, which is the worst mindset ever. Yeah. And most people go, no, but competition is really good. It's like, no, competition is really great in sports, right? Where there is a zero-sum. One team wins, the other. But even the greatest sports people of time have realized how bringing that into other parts of their life can be extraordinarily dangerous. I work with Olympians who talk about that all the time. It's like the competition on the field is really important. Off the field can ruin your life. But in business, you're really not competing with anybody but yourself. You think you are competing with other people. No, you're trying to do what you do uniquely and distinctly at the highest level of excellence. Yes, you need to know what other people are doing. Like, what is the quote unquote competition? Like, what do other people in your space do? I never even think about anyone in my space as competition. I go, oh, what are other people in my space doing? Can I learn from that to make my work better? Can I, like, that learning mindset, I would share out of everything anyone could learn here. Adopting the learning mindset is the primary move to changing your life. The second one, I would say, the primary mindset, which you have, and we're kind of a theme of what we're talking about right now. The second primary mindset I think everyone should adopt is the role model mindset. I speak about this all the time. Stepping into that space of your life where you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to live with such an integrity, consistency, discipline, care for others that they see me as an example. And I'm setting a standard or an example for my kids. I'm setting an example or standard for my team. I'm setting an example or standard for the school, for this community, for this team, for this organization. Like, that mindset that people are paying attention to your energy and your behavior makes you a better person. It's when we are in our own world that we become so narcissistic that we can't even recognize our effect on others, that the poison within grows. But when we recognize social animals, right? We're social animals. So when we recognize our impact with other people and we want to lift them by being a role model, suddenly it demands a better set of behaviors from us.
I love that. I feel like comparison is poison within, like exactly what you just said. It's such a distraction. Also, I want to say one thing about role model mindset too, because you talk about it so much. And I want to make one clarification, actually ask you one clarification. I think there'll be a lot of people out there who will think like, oh, I'm too flawed to be a role model. I'm too this, I've made too many past mistakes. Right? Like, I just want to say, I don't think you have to be perfect to be a role model, have a role model mindset. I don't think you don't have to like not make mistakes every day or not have misjudgments or miscalculations, or it's not that. Everyone, no matter how many mistakes you've made, how many misjudgments, how imperfect, how all those things, can still adopt a role model mindset. Can you make that clarification too? Because I think a lot of people instinctively feel like, oh, I'm not qualified to have a role model mindset. But I think
the good news is you're the only person qualifying yourself. So the good news is you're the only person qualifying yourself.
And isn't that true on almost everything?
Yes, you're the only person qualifying yourself. That's the ultimate mindset of something in personal development, which began in personal development, which is called self-reliance. Which is called the idea of taking personal responsibility or personal accountability for who you are and how you show up and what you're about. And so I think fundamentally, we have to realize all of our great role models, like the big names or the big books or the big leaders in the past, they became a role model precisely because we saw their struggle and they still showed up with intention and good behavior.
Yes.
So the struggle was not removed. The mess was not removed. The vulnerability was not removed. It was because of their success and their striving was built upon a foundation of disadvantage or difficulty that we go, that's why that person's a role model, because they still show up. So if you've been hurt or you're not perfect, the fact that you still show up with good intentions and good behaviors for others and yourself, that makes you a role model. Not because you have a million. Look, there's a ton of people on Instagram. They have millions of fans for showing their butt every day. Okay, following and popularity.
No judgment. Keep going.
No, but it's just listen. Popularity does not equal role model.
Right.
Money does not equal role model. Right? Your fancy car or your jet does not equal. What equals a role model is you keep showing up even when it's hard, and you have good intentions and behaviors for others. Yeah, that happens on the daily. You start going, you know what, that person, I've literally, and I've highlighted these folks on my shows and things in the past. Like, I have janitors in my life and mechanics in my life and people who are like literally living in poverty in my life who were role models to me. Yeah. And even when I was in poverty in my life, seeing that from there were people in my community who didn't have anything, who were still the people you turn to because you knew they've also struggled, but you also knew they cared. I think that's the magic.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.